students from the various departments and faculties of the university, my head of department, Dr. Mrs. Alo. If I don't recognize her, I may get a query when I get back to the department. Other gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome every one of you to this one-day sensitization workshop on carbon literacy for youth employability and job creation. This workshop is being organized by the Mobile and eComputing Research Group at the Faculty of Computing and Informatics at the Ladoke Akintola University of Technology, Ogbomoso. I'd like to give us a background of how this workshop came up. It is holding now. The workshop that we're attending today is a research output that is being funded by the British Council. The British Council, through the IAU, Innovation for African Universities, put on for a research grant somewhere in July last year, 2021. And this application requires that universities in Africa come up with research and innovation topics that they were going to investigate. And the applications were scrutinized, and those that were qualified or those that were selected were informed of their success. And we were one of those that were successful, and that's why we're having this workshop today. But I like to say that the Innovation for African Universities through the British Council specifically said that this innovation project is specifically meant for SSAs, that is the Sub-Saharan African Universities, because the title is IAU, Innovation for African Universities. They wanted African universities to identify African contextual problems and come up with solutions that solve these problems. So I am giving this information and background so that other colleagues, other academics can launch out when there's another advertisement, so we can still have several of these grants won within LAUTECH. But the procedure of applying is this. They require that we form partnership of universities within Africa, and then a UK-based university. So in the partnership, an SSA partner is required, then a UK-based university, because the funding comes from the British Council, so they insist that one university in the UK must be within the partnership. And then you must also have one ecosystem partner. Depending on the problem you are solving, you identify an ecosystem partner in the was a £60,000 sterling grant, but along the line, when we were selected, many partners applied, over 50. When I say partners now, I mean like 3 or 4 or 5 universities coming together, forming a partnership. Over 50 applied. And after the selection, only 24 were selected. And our partner project was one of those that was selected. Thank you. Now, when we started the project, the British Council made available £60,000. Of course, that's a lot when you multiply by 800 plus naira. Then, but later on, they boosted the grant with additional £40,000, making £100,000. Then, along the line, when the project was progressing, the British Council wanted us to expand the reach to some other institutions around. So they came up with a community building grant of additional £20,000, making a total of £120,000. Now, for our group, we chose a topic, carbon literacy, which we shall be educating you on very shortly. Now, in trying to choose our project, we looked at the Sustainable Development Goals. You agree with me that sometimes in 2015, about 195 countries came together under the United Nations to identify core challenges or problems facing the entire world, and they came up with some goals in trying to achieve those problems to make the world a better place. And those goals are referred to as Sustainable Development Goals. Now, we picked Goal 13 of that SDG, which has to do with climate change. And so we came up with a topic under that, carbon literacy. But again, we looked at sub-Saharan Africa and Nigeria in particular. One of the major challenges we have is youth unemployability. Unemployment in Nigeria today is about 33%. And so we thought we could solve climate change problem and merge it with youth employability and job creation. And so we came up with a topic, carbon literacy for youth employability and job creation for sub-Saharan Africa. And that's the project we embarked on. It was in September last year, the successful candidates were announced. And so we started the project somewhere in September last year. We just ended the first year of the project. We submitted all our reports. Our project, we embarked on it. Like I said, it's a partnership of LAUTECH. We have our partners in South Africa, in SA problem, sub-Saharan Africa. So we have Nigeria representing West Africa. We have DUT representing South Africa. And then we have Kisii University representing East Africa. And so that gives us a good picture of the SSA. So we were able to embark on our project, and then we identified a research group, MMU, that's the Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK, that have been doing some things on climate change and carbon literacy. So we had some understanding with them. They gave us some training on carbon literacy and climate change. Then at the end of our project, we have been able to develop, some of the outputs of the project includes, we have been able to develop a carbon literacy toolkit, which we have already made a pilot test on, and we got some people to interact with it. This morning, at the end of this program, we shall be presenting certificates to some of the students that participated in the pilot test and the trainings we have had earlier on. We have had workshops and some semi-sensitization workshops. And then, like I said, we did some pilot tests. In the course of this project, like I said, the British Council provided additional £20,000 to expand this project in what they call community building project so that we can bring in some other universities around us. In the community building project, we were able to identify 4 universities, Federal University, State University, and private university, which we brought in addition to LAUTECH. Now, what we try to do is to create it in different zones. So we took a Federal University, FUTA. We took KWASU as a state university, but from North Central, and then we had Bowen, a private university, and Adeleke University. So these are the 4 universities that we worked with. Now, in the course of this project, we have been able to sign some interesting MOUs with some of these universities that we have worked with. One, we have signed an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the Sheffield Hallam University in UK. We have signed an MOU with Durban University of Technology in South Africa. We have also signed an MOU with Kisii University in Kenya. During the course of this project, we came up with some adverts for doctoral students and postdoctoral students. The advert was circulated and some people applied. I'm happy to say this morning that in the course of this project, we have been able to secure through our MOU and funding for this project, have been able to secure a PhD admission for one of our students who has already been given admission. He has secured his visa and is currently in South Africa for his PhD on this project. The project team members include myself as the team leader in Nigeria, Professor John Oladosu, HOD Computer Science, Computer Engineering, Professor A.A. Bale, Dr. Mrs. Amusan, EA, Mr. Akindele of ODL, who is currently in South Africa, is the one that secured the admission. Then Mr. Dayo, then we have Jenyo, and then Bolu. These are students. Jenyo and Bolu are also students. So these are the team members for this project. It has been a very exciting time executing this project. Some of the things about this project is what we want to present to us this morning. And I want to wish you a very lovely time as you pay rapt attention to everything that we'll be doing here today. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you very much, sir, for taking us to the background of the workshop today. As I've earlier said, the introduction is going to be in phases, and with the permission of the Vice Chancellor, let me quickly recognize some important dignitaries. Let me quickly recognize some people here. The representative of the Dean, Faculty of Agric, Professor Babaindi. You are welcome, sir. To the high table, sir. You are welcome, sir. Now we have in our midst for recognition, Dr. T.A. Rafiu. You are welcome, sir. Thank you very much. Dr. Alade Abbas. You are welcome, sir. We have Architect Olaniyan. Thank you very much, sir. You are welcome. We have Dr. Mrs. Allo. You are welcome, ma'am. We have Dr. Sangutayo. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you. We have Dr. Mrs. Odewole. Thank you very much, ma'am. We have Dr. Ogirima. Where is he? It's outside here. And we have the faculty officer, computing and informatics, Mrs. Oluyole. Thank you very much, ma. Now, I forgot to introduce to us a professor here who is a very part of this project in the person of Professor Mrs. Bale. You are welcome, ma. To the high table, ma. To the high table. To the high table. Thank you very much, ma. Okay. I have the honor to call up Professor Afolabi from Computing and Informatics. Professor Afolabi. You're welcome, sir. To the high table, sir. To the high table, sir. You're welcome, sir. The acting vice chancellor, other important guests on the high table. Let us all welcome the acting vice chancellor to address the participants at this year's program. You are welcome, sir. A round of applause for him as he comes to the end.
Good morning, all. The Vice Chancellor, in person of Professor Mojit Liasu Olaide, has directed me to represent him because he's busy somewhere for another program. I will so deliver his welcome address as directed. Welcome address delivered by Professor Mojit Olaide Liasu, the acting Vice Chancellor of Ladoke Akitola University of Technology, Ogbomoso, Nigeria, at the one-day sensitization workshop, Carbon Literacy and Green Innovations Entrepreneurship for Youth Employability and Job Creation, held on 7th November 2022. The registrar in absentia, the bursar and university librarian in absentia, deans here present, directors and other heads of department here present, professors and other academic colleagues here present, the chief imam of the university, sir, greatest Nigeria students, greatest of the greatest Nigeria students. I have to give students salutation because I'm also the Dean of Student Affairs in this case. So students are well represented and recognized here. Other invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this one-day sensitization workshop on carbon literacy and green innovations, entrepreneurship for youth employability and job creation. We thank God Almighty for giving us the opportunity to gather here at this event. In 2015, the United Nations, UN, established a set of goals referred to as the Sustainable Goals, SDG, to make the world a better place for humans and other ecosystems, such as other animals and other living things. The goal 13 of SDG on climate action goes thus: to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. In recent time, climate change and global warming has become a household term because of its effect has already been felt. Though the two terms are different, but are sometimes interchangeably used. Climate change or global warming is no longer a far-off threat. It is already here with us. According to Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, climate change is a threat to human well-being and the health of all living things in the planet. People's lives and Earth's ecosystem are at increasing rate, and if nations fail to quickly reduce the emission of the planet eating, the effect may be catastrophic. The core of this carbon literacy workshop today is centered at sensitizing us on the ongoing disaster of climate change that is already endangering human and natural environment around the world. The emission of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases have been greatly identified as the key contributors to greenhouse effect and consequently to the rise in temperature resulting to global warming. Climate change, popularly referred to as global warming, has been identified as one of the leading human and environmental crises of the 21st century. In the past decade, global carbon emission has increased drastically, causing extreme climate in several parts of the planet. The physical impacts are evidenced by changes in rainfall patterns, diverse weather disasters like increasing flooding of rivers, extreme heat waves, forest fires, and droughts. These changes have in turn affected water supply and its quality, impacted human health via severe heat stress, and worsened air quality. Spread of diseases and other related harms have been identified. Likewise, the impact on shelter, vulnerable populations, and even national security cannot be overemphasized. Globally, it is now a grave concern that it is a threat to lives, economy, livelihood, and achieving sustainable development goals as set by most nations. Several international organizations, government, and concerned stakeholders have recommended potential solutions to mitigate global carbon emissions. Recommendations include the use of renewable energies, recycling and carbon-free agriculture and products, increased related research and innovations, individualized efforts to reduce energy needs, and advocacy measures. At a time like this in the country, when most youths are unemployed, and the downturn of the economy, the sensitization workshop is well overdue to prick the consciousness of the populace and especially help youths to see the possible opportunities and green innovations that can be leveraged on the challenges posed by carbon emissions, thereby creating jobs and employability of the youth. With the right technologies and enabling socio-economic factors, youth employment and job creation in Nigeria through carbon literacy and green innovations, entrepreneurship is highly possible. I thank you all for listening, especially students. Please pay attention to this workshop because it's going to be highly beneficial to you. Like rightly quoted, youth employability. The problem youth are facing nowadays is after leaving the university, they are not engaged. No employment, no job. But with some of you here present, can pick one or two things that will make your life better after leaving the university. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, sir, for the address. Now, before the presentation, we are going to move into goodwill messages. But before then, let me quickly recognize Professor Mrs. Ajala. Professor Mrs. Ajala, you are welcome, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. Then Mrs. Oiji Agbon. Is she here? You are welcome, ma'am. Then I want to recognize the students. I forgot to do that before, but now, if you are students here, please stand up for recognition. The students. Students. Thank you very much. A round of applause for yourself, please. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, ma'am. Now we are moving into goodwill messages, and I'm going to start with Professor Tijani. You are welcome, sir.
The chairman of this occasion, the acting vice chancellor, ably represented by Professor Kazim Ige, the head of this computing organization, my professor on the high table, the Dean Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, ably represented by Dr. Olasukami Aborishade, Professor, my chaplain, Professor Folabi, professors here present, heads of departments, colleagues, great Nigerian students. God bless you all. The entrepreneurship education has been part of the curriculum for tertiary education in this country for over a decade now. The main import, the significance is that education has gone beyond theories. In our days, you could get a job with your certificate, but today, what is required across the globe is the practical knowledge that can display, especially because of the advancement in information and communication technology, making the whole world a global village. The most lucrative job that you can get is online job. I'm not talking of Yahoo. I'm talking of the positive use of the internet. And you have special advantage in this university, LAUTECH, being University of Technology, and being the best state university in Nigeria, and being one of the best universities in the whole world. Can you applaud that? You have all it requires to be well-grounded in this type of computing education in information and content technology to make you one of the richest people in the whole world, like those people who own the Twitter, TikTok, WhatsApp, and others. You have the potentials only if you can develop that, and you have very good hands that can help you with that. One of the best computer engineers that the world has produced is from LAUTECH. I think you remember him, Professor Justice. Mudashiru was one of the pioneer students of the, was one of the best computer engineers in the whole world. So you have a role model. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, let me call on Dr. Aboishade.
Good afternoon. It's working. The Dean, Faculty of Computing and Informatics. Good afternoon, sir. The professors present, my colleague, and our students. Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm representing the Dean, Faculty of Art and Social Science, Professor Ibijua. And the topic, I just checked the topic, but one thing that's striking my mind is that of entrepreneurship, which I think is one of those things that we needed today. It's one of the in-training that is necessary for capacity building in the university today. Even those of us in arts, we try as much as possible to venture in this area because we know it can help even in our own personal endeavors. So I encourage my students to please don't joke with these developments. Try as much as possible to learn whatever you can so that you can be useful for you at the end of the day. I wish the organizer the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for making it brief. Professor Afolabi, you're welcome, sir.
The chairman and the Dean of Faculty of Computing and Informatics and the lead of this particular project research group, Professor Justice Emoyi Bufari. All other protocols duly observed. One of the major challenges of this present time worldwide is situations that comes through climate change. And one of the major problems with the climate change is carbon emission. And there's a need to respond to these changes because there are a lot of harmful repercussions as a result of that development. And that is why this workshop is very, very important, because the workshop is going to give how we can actually mitigate the problem and as well come to adaptation as a result of the development. Particularly those of us that are in IT and in computing. The advent of AI, artificial intelligence, and several works that have been done in that area are means by which we can see these problems, and from there we can have a series of solutions that comes as a result of climate change. So carbon literacy and green innovations, they are very, very, vast, and they are solutions that can actually make us to overcome these existential challenges. So, particularly students, we are going to gain a lot. Let us be, let's give our utmost attention so that you'll be able to see areas where we can come or where we can actually feature in entrepreneurship. Thank you. I wish us a very fruitful deliberations.
The representative of the Dean, Faculty of Agri, Professor Obarinde. You are welcome, sir.
Vice Chancellor, ably represented by the Dean of Student Affairs, the Dean Computing and Informatics, Professor Justice Emu Eyubufari, members on the high table, all professors here present, and other staff members of the university, and then the student body. I'm standing in for the Dean of my faculty, Faculty of Agricultural Sciences, Professor A.A. Akingbade, who is unavoidably absent because of other commitment. Let me start by congratulating the team leader of this particular research group. I remember some years ago while we were in school, some of our lecturers will say, you are in agriculture, think on what you can do along the side of environment that will brighten your chance. Incidentally, as God will have it, climate change is an issue that concerns the environment and agriculture. And by the time I look at the focus of this particular workshop, something that has to do with entrepreneurship and youth employable potentials, I think is a step in the right direction. Congratulations, sir. And the second reason why I want to congratulate you is what you have done, having collaborations from different universities within and outside the country, is a step in the right direction to assist the university in international ranking. And I want to commend the Faculty of Computing and Informatics for doing this. It's a giant stride. The third reason why I want to congratulate you is exploring the opportunity to create an avenue for our members of the university to learn, specifically the privilege given to the PhD student for the scholarship in South Africa. I think we should commend Professor Justice Emu Eyubufari for these particular feats. Can we applaud him, please? Now, thank you. I want to throw just two challenges to you, sir, and then one challenge to the students that are here. The first one is, how are we going to make sure that our work will not only be something on the shelf or something that is only meant for scientific publications, something that the end users, the potential end users will benefit from. So I want to throw the challenge to you. When you are designing your research, please have it at the back of your mind, the potential end users, so that people will be singing the praises of the university, LAUTECH, that the researchers in LAUTECH have helped us to solve specific practical problems. Now, the second challenge I want to throw to you is sustainability of this particular project. Please let it not be something that will just come up now and in the next few months, that will be the end to it. Whatever you can do to explore other avenues to ensure its sustainability is a good thing. And to the students, I want to encourage you. This is a generation where we encourage interdisciplinary studies, and then there is application of computer to every walk of life. So you have an avenue to attend this workshop. Please make the best use of it. Members of the team are people I'm aware that I'm familiar with, Professor Justice, Professor Ladosu, Professor Bale, Dr. Amuson. These are people that are student friendly. You can walk up to any of them to make inquiries on how you can explore opportunities for you as students of the university. And I'm very sure they will be glad to assist you in any way. I wish every one of you a nice time and a full moment in the course of this workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. The acting vice chancellor, sir, permit me to recognize these two important dignitaries. First, Dr. Ismaila, the Deputy Dean in the faculty. You are welcome, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Then the Director of Law Creed, Professor Adedosu. You are welcome, sir. Professor Adedosu, to the high table. To the high table. Now we are moving on to the first presentation. And I'm going to call on Professor Mrs. Bale to do justice to that. Then if you have any questions, please write your questions down. At the appropriate time, there will be time for question and answers. You are welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I think I can present here. Yes. Good afternoon, the acting vice chancellor, my director, my deans, professors here present, staff, students. This afternoon, I think I just have 30 minutes for my presentation. Yes. I'm thinking, I think it's better if I stay here. Can you hear me? No? All right, so I'll be presenting on carbon, climate change, carbon emissions and footprints in Nigeria. I'm Professor Bale Abimbola Adebisi. Next slide, please. Climate. Let's start from what is climate. Now, from our little geography in those days, climate can be defined as the weather of a specific area over a period of time. Most times, like 30 years, it could be more. So, for example, in Nigeria, we're said to have a tropical climate. And that tropical climate is characterized by two seasons. We have the rainy season, we have the dry season. And depending on the location of where you are in Nigeria, you have a variation of the length of the dry seasons and the length of the rainy seasons. But the most important thing characterizing the tropical climate is the fact that we have those two seasons. Now, so for some other places, some other countries, they also have different climate. Some they call it Mediterranean, some, different name, depending on the seasons they have at that point or at that place. Now, so what is climate change? If we now know what a climate is, that over a period of time, 30 years, more than 30 years, the season, so for example, in Nigeria, in those days, a couple of years back, you could see our fathers, our grandfathers, they could tell you exactly when the rain will start. They will say in month so the rain will start. And in month so that rain will stop. Another season starts. And then, you see, their predictions were actually accurate because the climate was a bit stable. But look at what is happening now. For example, last year, I think we had a lot of dry season in this part of the world. And then it led to people not being able to plant well. In fact, there was almost famine last year. A lot of farmers, were crying, literally crying. But look at what happened this year again, just a year later. Now look at the number of months that it rained. Now look at the amount of rainfall we've had in this year. And of course, we see that the amount, the high amount of rainfall even caused floods. Floods that have destroyed farms in the north, floods that have destroyed homes, destroyed a lot of properties and all that. Now, so you see a difference in what has been obtainable from our climate here. So there's a climate change. We can call that the climate change. So climate change is a long-term shift in temperatures and weather patterns. Now, this shift may be natural. Please, next slide. This shift may be natural. But since the 17th century, human activities have been the main driver of climate change. You see, naturally, things could change. Maybe the movement of the planet and things like that could result in climate change. But most of the climate change reactions that we've had have been due to human activities affecting the climate. Next slide, please. Global change versus global warming versus climate change. Now, many of us have heard about global warming, a rise in temperature in the global space, a rise in temperature in the global space. Now, climate change is different, but even though people sometimes, use them interchangeably. Now, having defined what climate change is, climate change actually encompasses global warming, but it refers to a longer shift or a long time shift or broader range of climate change that has been happening to our climate or our planet. Now, this can include rising sea levels, okay? Now, when there is a climate change, we'll get there, I will still do some explanation. Now, we can have rising sea levels, we can have shrinking mountain glaciers, we can have accelerating ice melt. For example, in the Antarctica, in the Arctic, the ice, are melting fast. And that has resulted in the water volume of the seas. We can also have a shift in flower or plant booming times. Like what I said, the period of dry season has changed from the period of wet season. And so you get to have things like that. But what is global warming? It's actually, it actually refers to a long-term warming of the planet characterized by general increase in the average temperature of the earth. Now look at that thermometer there. We have 0, we have 1 degree Celsius, 2, and so on. Now, assuming there is a global temperature rise up to 1% Celsius, where you could see green graduating to yellow, to orange, and then to red. That red means danger. So danger down, is the less intensity of danger just coming down. Now, when you get to green, light green, a bit yellow, is, when the temperature has risen for like 1 degree Celsius, 1.5, is still better. But in a short while, I will still explain that. Next slide, please. Now, so what are the evidences of climate change? Like I said, I mentioned a few. The climate or the climates are changing. For Nigeria, for some other, continents, the climates are changing. And there are different evidences depending on where, depending on the location, there are different evidences that could be seen as a result of this climate change. Now let's look at the global temperature rise. Now the planet's average surface temperature has risen about since the 19th century. And now the average is between, I think, 1.2 and 1.4. I'm not sure it has not risen beyond 1.4. Now, can you see, look at that, that graph. There are five bodies there, and that's, plotted graph. We with respect to the year 1850 up to 2022, somewhere there. And you could see a uniform, something similar in their readings, okay? So that means that irrespective of what anybody says or sees, the temperature of the earth is rising. Now, next slide, please. We have warming ocean and shrinking ice sheets. Like I told you, when there is a rise in temperature, of course, ice will melt. And you can imagine, the Antarctica and the Arctic region areas are characterized by ice, a lot of ice. And because of this rise in temperature, they are melting. And while they are melting, they are melting into what? From solid block to what? To water. And you see the water is flowing into the oceans, is flowing, into the rivers, into the waters and all that. And you see, as the water level is increasing, do you know that is what is causing flood? A lot of places are becoming overflooded. And due to this overflooding, lives are being lost, properties are being lost, and a lot of other things that come with flooding. Next slide, please. We also have glacial retreat. Now, on the mountains, okay, where we usually have snow, for a long period of time. Now, as time goes on, this snow, they solidify and become ice sheets. They become glaciers on the mountains, and they cover the mountains. But what you see now, look at that diagram. Look at 1953. Look at 2019, just there. You see, those glaciers are also melting. And so there is a retreat of the glacier. They are reducing on the mountain, and they're also forming water. They are turning to water into the seas, the same rivers. And so the water level continuously increases, leading to flood. Now, the next one is extreme events. Now, all over the world, of course, we listen to news, we watch documentaries on YouTube and so on. You see, in some places, they will say heat wave, extreme temperature, and people are dying from heat wave. In some places, it is flood. Like, just look at Nigeria, not Nigeria alone. I remember a couple of years ago, starting with Indonesia, I think it's now, year in, year out, that Indonesia reports flooding. They lose lives, they lose properties, and it has made them more vulnerable to the evidences of the climate change. Now, future climate. Next slide, please. Future climate. We have seen what climate change can cause. Now, look at where we are now. Where we are now, like I said, I'm not sure we have not passed this level. That's where we are. Now, if we carry on as, let's see. In the Paris Agreement aims to limit the global temperature rise this century to 20 Celsius. In his opening flooding, people are dying, properties, they're losing properties and things like that. A lot of things are already happening. Now, that's 1.2, 1.4. Imagine that we get to 3 degrees Celsius. Okay? Now just imagine, that is if we all do our bit, we are there. Imagine what will be happening. And if we carry on as normal, that I don't care, anything can happen, I don't want to change my lifestyle, because to battle the effect of climate change, we all need to change one thing or the other. Okay? If we say we are not ready to change anything, then we could get to 4 degrees Celsius, and you can see it's red. That's really dangerous for everybody, not just Americans, not just UK citizens, but even everybody. People in the village, all of them will be affected. It's a global thing. Now the composition, next slide, the composition of the atmosphere. Of course, I think we also did that in science. That's the atmosphere. We have nitrogen, we have oxygen, we have argon, we also have some trace gases in the atmosphere. Some of them are carbon dioxide, you have nitrous oxide, methane, ozone, hydrogen, helium, and all this, including water vapor. Now so normally that's the composition of the atmosphere. Now greenhouse gases, what are they? Now these are the composition of the atmosphere, are the gases in the atmosphere normally. But there is what we call greenhouse gases, and we're going to see their effects shortly. Now, what are greenhouse gases? These are gases that are able to absorb and emit radiant energy within the thermal infrared range, causing the greenhouse effect. Now, so what is the greenhouse effect? I said greenhouse gases are gases in the atmosphere that can absorb heat energy. Now, the greenhouse effect is an effect. You see, when they absorb this heat energy, they stay on the surface of the earth or in the lower atmosphere on the surface of the earth. So they trap heat, okay, and make the place hot or make the temperature of that place to increase. Now let's quickly look at how the greenhouse effect occurs. Now, of course, we know that the sun is the primary source of energy that transmits solar radiation to the earth. Sun energy, that's solar. Next slide. Now, of course, the energy from the sun transmits to earth through the atmosphere. That's why we call it the solar radiation. Now, look at this. Now, when there are radiations from the sun, they tend to heat the surface of the earth. Of course, you can feel, that is why you can feel the heat from the sun. Now, but the fact is that it's not all the radiation from the sun that hits the earth. Along the line, physics people, if there are some here, along the line, some get reflected back, okay? Now, some hit the atmosphere, they get reflected back. Some hit the earth, they get reflected back. But the fact remains that some are also absorbed by the earth. Just like when you put water outside, under the sun, the water becomes hot, isn't it? So that means that it has absorbed some form of heat energy from the sun. Now, so next, radiation that is not reflected. Next, please. The one before this. The slide before this one, please. Okay, so radiations that is not reflected by the atmosphere reaches the earth's surface, are absorbed by it, and they warm the earth. Now, as the earth warms up, the surface starts to emit infrared radiation back into the atmosphere, which is now absorbed by the greenhouse gases. As greenhouse gases are what we call GHG. They are absorbed, as the greenhouse gases absorb the emitted infrared radiation from the surface, they themselves emit an even longer wavelength, lower radiation in all directions. So they tend to disperse the heat. And so the surface of the earth becomes warm, or the temperature of the surface of the earth is actually increased. So that's what we call the greenhouse effect. Now, the major greenhouse gases are this. The major greenhouse, remember, I said greenhouse gases are gases that are able to absorb heat, okay? Now, they can absorb the heat, retain the heat, and later emit the heat into the atmosphere. Now, we have carbon dioxide, we have methane, we have nitrous oxide, and we have the fluorinated gases. We call them F gases. Now, so greenhouse gases percentage emission by gas. Next slide, please. Now, from that pie chart, you can see that out of all the greenhouse gases that are emitted into the atmosphere, carbon dioxide takes a very, very large share of those gases. And then we have methane, like I said, due to human activities. Then we have nitrous oxide as N20, and then we have the F gases, the fluorinated gases. Now, please let's quickly look at the greenhouse gases global warming potentials. Greenhouse gases global warming potentials. We have the carbon dioxide, the methane, the nitrous oxide, and the F gases. Now, look at this diagram. What it means is that assuming that 1 unit of carbon dioxide is able to trap heat by just 1 unit. 1 unit of carbon dioxide is able to trap heat by 1 unit. It means that 1 unit of methane will trap 28 times as much heat as carbon dioxide is going to do. Now, so nitrous oxide is going to 265 as much heat as carbon dioxide is going to do. And the F gases in thousands. Now, what this means is that if we have too much methane, for example, more than carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, then there's trouble. Because methane will absorb greater heat than carbon dioxide. But at the same time, remember that carbon dioxide is produced in large quantity, right? And so by the time carbon dioxide traps this heat, it's almost the same as what methane would trap, since methane is not much in the atmosphere, in the emitted gases. And that is why there is much major concentration on the carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Now let's quickly look at the sources of carbon dioxide. We have burning of coal. In Nigeria, I mean, it's not really the coal, charcoal that we are using to cook. That's not what we're talking about. For example, in countries like South Africa, they use coal to generate their electricity. So you can imagine the amount, the enormous coal that they will need to generate electricity for that country. Now, so we also have burning of gases, we have burning of oil spills. All these actually release carbon into the atmosphere. We have land use change, we have cement production, and we have fuel burning. Fuel burning. That is the most common thing. Everybody carries their car. They are going. They're actually polluting the atmosphere with carbon. And so we're going to get to places where we see what to do. Now look at sources of methane. We have fossil fuel extraction and transportation. Next slide. We have landfilling waste. We have ruminant livestock, okay? They also produce methane. We have manure production, we have biomass burning, and we have sewage disposal. Look at Nigeria. What do we have? Do we have good sewage, good methods of disposing sewage? No. Most times when those, I think they call them people that come to pump this thing, shit from your sock away. Where do you think they dump them? In the seas, in the rivers, okay? Now, so that's another major source of methane. Sources of nitrous oxide. Sources of nitrous oxide, you have fertilizers, you have biomass burning, that's wood burning. You have e-waste management from your, all these e-waste, your phones, your electronics, television, computer, and so on. Now, you also have manure production, you have nylon production. Sources of F gases, these are fluorinated gases. Your insecticides, that is aerosol propellant. We have firefighting agent. We also have refrigerating or cooling gases. Your fridge, your freezer, they also emit fluorinated gases. Now, next is carbon footprint. Carbon footprint. What is carbon footprint? Carbon footprint is actually a measure of the amount of greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere. Carbon footprint is a measure of the greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere as a result of human activity. Now, this carbon footprint, how can it be calculated? They can be calculated using various criteria. It can be generated, can be calculated per sector, per individual, per organization, okay? Projects, products, you see, there are methods or there are calculation methods, techniques that we use to calculate this. But the most important thing is that almost everything has a carbon footprint, and it's actually a measure of the amount of carbon emissions that organization or the person or the group release into the atmosphere. Now, visualizing carbon emissions. Now, let's see. Assuming a ton of carbon emission will fill 5 buses. Now, what it means is that 0.2 tons will fill a bus. And so 0.2 times 5 is a ton, okay? Now, so for Nigeria, the footprint of an average Nigerian is 0.6 tons, an average Nigerian. So it means that as you are seated here, your average footprint is 0.6. But of course, you know, our population in Nigeria is highly exploding. So by the time you multiply 0.6 by the total number of Nigerians, that becomes massive. Now, for an average South African, look at this diagram. I said 5 buses represents 1 ton, right? Now, so you can calculate how many tons an average South African will be releasing into the atmosphere per year. Now, if these are 8 times 4, that's 32. 32 plus 6, that's 38. 38 divided by 5, I think that's 7.6 or something. So an average South African releases or has a carbon footprint of 7.6. Now, 7.6 multiplied by their population in South Africa, that is also a lot. So that is why South Africa is one of the highest, you know, recorded or highest countries that have, or one of the countries that has the highest recorded footprint in the whole world. Now, let's quickly look at the footprint of food. Like I said, virtually everything has a carbon footprint. It means that virtually everything releases a certain amount of carbon into the atmosphere. So how to get better? The way to get better is to embrace those things that have low carbon footprint. Now, when you embrace things that have high carbon footprint, it means that you are contributing massively carbon footprint into the atmosphere. Now, so let's quickly look at the footprint of food. You want to ask, is it possible that our food are even emitting carbons into the atmosphere? Now, look at international footprint. Yes, you have beef. At the top of the list is beef. 10 kg footprint, you can imagine. Now, per unit, now, goat meat is 6, fish 2.2, pork, and so on. And look at beans. Look at soya beans. Look at even eggs. Now they have the least 0.2 compared to 10. So it means that for 1 unit or the same measurement of meat and beans, meat will contribute 10 kg, while beans will contribute 0.2 kg. Now, so you want to ask, if you ask me, if you want to be carbon emission friendly, I will tell you to eat more of beans and less of meat. Can you do that? Start asking yourself, because I'm still getting there. Nigerians especially, can we do away with meat? Beef especially. Yeah, so, but I'll rush. Now, so next slide. Let's quickly compare the carbon footprint of different nutritions. Now we have at the highest in the ladder is the high meat eater, 7.2. And at the lowest is the vegans, people that eat just vegetables. So what we're saying is that plant-based items, food, they actually have low carbon footprint than animal-based. The footprint of travel, let me quickly rush through that. My time is almost gone. And the footprint of travel. Now assume you are to travel a one-way trip to Abuja. Now, means of transportation, you can travel by car, you can travel by train, you can travel by air, and some other means. Now, let's quickly look at the footprint or the carbon footprint of those modes of transportation. Now, the first diagram, you have separate cars and large petrol. Okay, that means, assuming we are 5, each of us carries our car from Lagos to Abuja, from Abuja back. Now look at what we'll be contributing into the atmosphere. For one person, it's 205. For 2 people, it's 410. Now if we travel by air, now for one person, it's 137. For 2, that figure. Now car sharing, look at car sharing. But if I go with somebody, I don't carry my car, we carry the person's car and we go together. You see that the carbon footprint is reduced. And if I travel by rail, now look at by rail, it's 30. And if there are 2, it's 60. And that is why you see in these, most advanced countries, you don't see many of them using cars these days. Blacks, we are the problem of the world. You want to buy the latest car. You have like 2 cars, you still want to buy more because you have the money, contributing largely, carbon into the atmosphere. Many of them, they that we can take. Now, those actions are divided into 2. We have individual action, we have group action. Individual action is what you decide to do on your own. Now, we have seen the danger. It's not a danger of Nigeria. It's not a danger of China that, China, they are producing greater carbon, okay, into the atmosphere. And so we Nigerians are saying, no, it is a global thing because that temperature is affecting everybody on the planet. Now, so you can take individual action, decide on your own. Like me, since I started, learning things about carbon literacy and all that, I've greatly reduced my meat, especially beef. I go for fish, beans, I eat beans. Yes, because my conscience tells me that in my own little way, I'm contributing less carbon into the atmosphere. So as you are seated, you can also take action. You can make up your mind. It's a pledge to yourself and to the world. See, if we get to that temperature that I said, that I talked about, I showed you, then the whole world is in trouble. It's not just those advanced world in trouble, but everybody, even the villagers there that don't have electricity, they're all in trouble. Now, the second action is group action. We can decide to take a group action that as an institution, as a family, as a group, research group, any type of group, we can also take action. Now, for students, can be in your personal life, at the university, or at work. Now, suggestions for the university, travel and transport. Bicycle, for example, instead of coming to school with your cars, ride bicycles. Bicycles do not emit anything into the atmosphere, no carbon. It's not using fuel, okay? Now, university-specific bus, the university can make available modes of transportation, to carry students and mass so that people, staff, they don't come in their different cars, contributing much carbon into the atmosphere. We also have reduced car parking on campus. When there are no parking spaces, you know that if you bring your car and you cannot park, you will take it back home. The following day, you will not bring your car. Now, emphasize to students that cars are not allowed on campus. Now, you would agree with me that even in Lautech here, students have the greater number of cars than even staff. That is Nigeria for you. Students, they have more cars than even staff. Some staff, I know them, when they don't have money for fuel, they will join somebody. The student will say, no, they must know I have a car. He will bring his car to school. Now, the next one on energy and buildings. Install LEDs in your rooms or halls. This applies to all of us. Low energy bulbs that don't emit much carbon into the atmosphere. Now we have as low as 7 watts now. In those days, it used to be 60 watt bulb, Abi, and 100 watts. We have as low as 7 watts now. That will be brighter than even those other bulbs. Now, raise awareness with improved signage. Place signage, signage is everywhere. Do this, don't do this. Now, use racks instead of tumble dryer, maybe your washing machine and things like that. Adapt paperless services, okay? Papers also contribute, they have a high percentage of carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Install renewable energy. Instead of using eradicate generators, remove them. You see, solar energy, that's renewable. It's a long-term thing, but we can also invest in it. They don't emit carbon. It uses the solar radiation as energy. Now, we also have food. Eat more plant-based, healthy, local-sourced, low-carbon options. Make them widely available for the university community now, rather than the other ones that are high in carbon emission. Now, hold and promote vegetable markets. Now, students, these are areas of innovations and entrepreneurship, okay? I know that in those days, some students used to bring food to school to sell to staff. And I know a student that graduated, I think she has gone for service. Now, one girl like this, she used to do that. There are so many things you can bring out from this. You sit down, you think that using this challenge, how can I gain from it? What can I make out from it? That's entrepreneurship. Now, use pricing to promote positive choices. For example, we want to prefer, we want people to eat fish. Bring the prices of fish down. When they want to eat meat and they don't have money to eat meat, would they not eat fish, for crying out loud? Now, so these are some of the things. And for some stuff, hold a swap shop, physical or virtual. Encourage swapping. Don't just go and buy. You see these clothes that we are wearing, they have high carbon footprints too. Now, so you can go for secondhand. It's not a shame. Oh. I'm telling you, it's not a shame. Good secondhand. So when the shops are available and there are good clothes there, students can buy, even staff can buy from there. Facilitate donation to charity. Most of us, when we use old clothes, even though they are very good, we'll go and burn them. Abi, we'll go and throw them away instead of giving them to charity. See motherless babies home, see beggars, see all that. And then negotiate discounts with high quality clothing retailers. You see that when you have few good clothes, that you don't go for all those cheap ones and increase carbon emissions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Then identify we're supposed to put some right. Yeah, I think take note. I can summarize. Just identify those people with questions. No,
Thank you very much, man, for that lecture. Now, if you have questions, if you have questions, signify if you have questions. I want to recognize the presence of Professor Mrs. Adetunji. You are welcome. A round of applause for her, please. You are welcome. Now we want to entertain questions, please. If you have questions, one or two. If there is none, then okay, come over, please. Quickly.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my question, Ma, is you said we should individually try to contribute to elimination emission. But I want to say, you made example about transportation. Now, we all know that, let's say some places in Lagos, I'll use Lagos as an example because I know that Lagos as a city will be like one of the major contributors to carbon emission in Nigeria because of the high rate of, they have traffic as one of their major problems. Now, I have to get to work. He said I should ride bicycle. The road is not good. I said, he said I should be riding bicycle to school or somewhere. But one, the road is not good. Two, look at our population. Let's imagine that every LAUTECH student is riding bicycle to school. I'm telling you that there will still be traffic problem. There will be, because we know that, okay, now we have roads. Apart from LAUTECH students, other people are still using these roads. But if you have dedicated roads for cyclists, it will be better. So what I mean is, if beyond our own efforts. So the question I want to ask is, what are our government or other third parties, what are they doing to eliminate this in Nigeria? Because personally, I'm not seeing any efforts being put into place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are you answering, ma'am? No?
Thank you very much. In a short, that was a wonderful question. I expected somebody to ask me anyway. Now, the most important thing about this carbon literacy, carbon footprint thing is that's why I said individual action. We can't do it alone. But you see, we can start from somewhere. Like I told you, me personally, if you come, you ask my children, I'm still eating meat small, but I've reduced it, okay? And I'm hoping to get better. Now, so if I say individual, now everybody cannot even have money for bicycle now, but we can start from somewhere. Now, you were coming to school with your car before, burning so much fuel. Now you buy a bicycle and you start riding your bicycle to school. I mean, you have contributed less carbon. Now, the school has a part to play. The government has a part to play. If we say everybody come on bicycles, it means that we will build, like he said, dedicated paths or roads for bicycles so that cars will not go and knock students down somewhere. And sorry, if there's any violation, the offenders are punished. If you go and knock students where the student is riding bicycle, there you know you are in trouble. So they stay clear of them. And when you ride bicycles to school, the school should also, provide parks for bicycle. Not just providing parks for bicycle, providing security for your bicycles. You see the chain now, providing security for your bicycle. And so the chain goes on. Like that's why I said it is not something that I can do alone. It's not something that you can do alone, but we all have to work together. Now, it also starts with the Nigerian government putting the right policies in place that, okay, students, maybe from the top and say students no longer ride this thing. Or maybe establishments, the finance, the ministry, the this, don't bring it, you have number of cars that can come into the school or the premises at some point in time, and then the chain goes like that. So please, what I'm advocating is that start from you. The little things, you see, like clothes, food. I've given you some example. You want to travel. Instead of 4 of you taking your cars, go together. Take one person's car. It's still the same comfort. You go there, one way or the other, you have lessened the amount of carbon emissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma. Online question.
Thank you very much. This is an online question. It says, what is Nigerian government doing with respect to policy enforcement, ma? Now, I know that they have policies, some policies in place, like for energy. You see, the Nigerian government has policies for encouraging all these solar systems and things like that. They have them, they are existing, but if you don't look, you don't get, because they are not highly publicized and all that. Now, but for the enforcement, that's the problem. I think that's a general problem with Nigeria. I don't know what they are doing. That if they have said that in a building, I think some time ago, even organization, maybe ministries or something, in federal organizations, they launched paperless administration where they do a lot of things. But now maybe they have gone back to it. Now the enforcement is a problem. Like I said in the first question, if we say, okay, ride bicycle, do this, and somebody knocks a motor, you know, a car owner goes to knock a student on a bicycle, and he's not properly apprehended, what do you think will happen? They will just be knocking students, like play. But you see, when there are good enforcement in place, everybody will sit up. Now, for example, I remember when I was at ICT, and people will come in for exam. Some people fought me fine, but I knew I was doing something that was good. We had, because we have so many students, so we had time slots for them. You come within your time. People will not come there at 20. Somebody that has a time slot of 2 to 2:30 will come to ICT from 8 o'clock. So if you come, you just be wasting your time. You will not do exam until 2:30. So you will know, let me kuku stay at home. Is that not? And so if you now come by 8, you will not do exam. If you come after 2:30, you will not do exam. That's the kind of enforcement. People will fall in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma. We are quickly going to move to the second part of the presentation. So I'm going to call on the Dean to do justice to that. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Before I continue, I've asked the moderator to invite Professor Mrs. Adetunji to the high table. Please join us at the high table. Professor Mrs. Onawumi, is she still there? I asked her to also join us at the high table. All right, please join us at the high table. Ladies and gentlemen, are we tired? All right, I'll make my presentation as brief as possible, but let me just say one or two things in addition to what she has presented. The world is at a state of danger and extinction if nothing is done. Both humans, animals, and other ecosystems stand the danger of being totally exterminated. And what is the reason? The reason is climate change. The reason is global warming. From 1800 till date, it has been discovered that the temperature of the earth has been rising. And this is resulting to extreme weather condition, which is now, threatening the existence of human. And basically, human activities is contributing to this temperature rise. Hello? Like she has said, the sun is the major source of energy to the earth. There's nothing wrong about that. It's fine. Is that okay? Yeah. But when the radiation of the heat of the sun comes to the earth, the greenhouse gases absorb the temperature. Is good. Now, if the greenhouse gases are not absorbing the temperature from the sun, the earth will be too cold to about -18 degrees for human existence. So the heat being absorbed from the sun keeps the earth warm. But what we are saying now is that the activity of human is contributing excessive greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, fluorinated gases, human activities, when we burn wood, when we make fire, when we burn tires, when we burn all these things that, of course, one of the major menaces in the world today is plastic. Hello, do you agree with me? Yeah, a lot of us drink bottled water, sachet water. We throw away all these things. Now, these plastics are not biodegradable. It will take over 20 years for a plastic bottle to degenerate. So they are causing nuisance. And so people gather all this plastic, all this nylon, and you burn it. When you burn it, you are adding what? CO2 to the atmosphere. You're adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. And this is now with industrialization. We are contributing a lot of what? Greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And all this cumulatively is causing the temperature of the earth to rise. And the world leaders, United Nations, the G7, G8, G20, all of them are coming together in what we call COP 26, COP 27, and so on and so forth. They have met in Paris, they've met in Glasgow. They are all looking at how we can solve the problem of global warming, which is threatening human existence. Like she has said, excessive heat, flooding, a whole nation, a whole community being submerged in water, in flood, because, like she said, the ice sheets in the Arctic regions are melting because of the rise in temperature. And this rise in temperature, when the ice melts, it turns to water and then it overflows. You know, it goes to the ocean, to the sea, to the rivers. And so we are having a lot of issues of flooding. So what we are saying this afternoon is, how can we reduce emission of carbon into the atmosphere as an individual? How can you turn those waste papers, instead of burning them, how can you turn them into another product? Entrepreneurship. Instead of burning papers. Now we see people now, tires, all the unused tires are burnt by vulcanizer, by people, and then, go up there. How can we, instead of burning the tires, can we turn them into another product? Entrepreneurship. Of course, we've seen a lot of people today that have come up with industries from used tires. They convert them into tiles, rubber tiles. Google that, you'll see it. We see people now using used tires to make furniture, chairs, tables, and so on and so forth. Now, all those plastic bottles. For instance, in UK, I know particularly in Germany, that bottled water, the bottle, is recyclable. So you don't throw it away. When you drink bottled water, you keep the bottle. As many bottles as you have, the next time you want to shop, you take them to the shopping mall. There's a machine. You just put all the empty bottles. It will give you a voucher, and then you use the voucher to buy things. I've done it. I bought a crate of bottled waters, and after exhausting the water, I took the bottle back to the shop, and then you just put them one after the other. The machine will just take everything, and it will count it, and it will give you a voucher. That same voucher, you use it to buy tomato, pepper, chicken, and everything you need in that same shop. That's converting waste to what? To money. And that's where we are talking about green innovation entrepreneurship. Now we should start thinking green. How do we turn all the waste around into what? Into an enterprise. That's what we are talking about here. So one, we want to reduce anything that will add to greenhouse gases, anything that we are going to destroy or burn, and then it will add to what? To the gases out there. Then find a way of converting some of those waste into business. I like to inform you here now that in the nearest future, having a car is not going to be a luxury. Yeah, because the emissions from cars are already constituting nuisance. Anyway, that's why they are coming up with electric vehicles and so on. But there's a country today in Europe, in that country, all their means of mobility is just bicycle. In that country, it's the first country in the world that have more bicycle than vehicle. So they only provide for bicycles. Yeah, and it is not, and do you know that riding a bicycle keeps you fit? For those of us that are having cars, you are doing damage to your health because we live more of a sedentary life. You sit in the AC, you drive yourself, you come to the office, you sit in the AC, you go home, you are sleeping under the AC, no exercise. When you use a bicycle, you exercise, and at the same time, you don't contribute carbon to the atmosphere. Hello, is somebody getting what she has just said? That's just a wrap-up of what she said. Thank you very much. Then I can go to my own presentation now. Okay, move on, fine. What is carbon literacy? What is carbon literacy? Carbon literacy is just an awareness of the carbon cost and the impact of everyday activity and the ability and motivation to reduce emission on an individual basis, community basis, and organizational basis. Now there's a cost and there's an implication of our activity that adds carbon to the atmosphere. So your knowledge of this and the implication of what it has on our life and the entire globe, what we refer to as carbon literacy. Next slide, please. Now, well, there are some people that says that we cannot start reducing emission at this level. We need some research to find the right way to do that. Well, it's possible. Now, let me give you this information. Already in the world, people are coming with innovation that traps carbon. I want to inform you very reliably that Elon Musk have developed some devices that is able to trap carbon. Now, just like you have in the cryptocurrency market, now we have what we call a carbon card. You can capture carbon, convert it into carbon credits, and have it on your carbon cards, and you can use it to trade on the cryptocurrency market. Yeah, because carbon is becoming a nuisance to the world. As a result, carbon is now being trapped and made. As much carbon you are able to capture, it increases your credit, and then you can use it as a means of currency in the world. Well, some people still think that is a lie. There's nothing like carbon emission that can cause any danger in the world. And they are saying, na lie, na lie. But I want to tell you today, na true. Carbon is causing a lot of havoc. If you look at the world, if you look at, the leaders of the world, and you also look at scientific evidences that shows that emission of carbon is directly responsible for global warming. So the common reaction of the public seems to say that there is no carbon emission, but there is. Next, okay, that's the statistics of climate change awareness. Now, some research were conducted to show some statistics of 119 countries of their climate change awareness. Now, on this table, we have only captured the first top 10 and the last 10. Now, from this table, you can see the percentage of awareness. Japan is leading, 98.9, United States, and so on and so forth, down to Canada. Now, the last 10, of course, that's where we have our country, Nigeria. The awareness of climate change is just 27.8. And that's why we're organizing this sensitization workshop to make us to be aware that there's something called climate change. Now, when you talk about climate change, most of the time it's only people in environmental sciences or agricultural sciences that seem to be aware that there is something called climate change. Like she has explained in her presentation, there is a drastic change in the global climate, and this is resulting to some catastrophic effect on human. And that is why the United Nations captured it among the SDG that this must be given urgent attention. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, what is responsible for the low awareness in climate change? A group of researchers led by Lee, Markowitz, Howe et al. in their research paper titled Predictors of Public Climate Change Awareness and Risk Perception Around the World, they discovered that one of the major reasons or causes for low climate change awareness is education. The researchers attempted to get to the bottom of why awareness and concern of climate change differs between countries. They analyzed the responses against social, financial, and behavioral factors to see if they were linked, such as age, education level, urban or rural location. Together, and have written some agreements, and countries and nations that are parts of this agreement are to execute, policies that will address the issue of climate change. I like to say at this point that Nigeria, attended the COP26 conference in Glasgow. Our president was there and they made commitment. I also want to tell us at this point that the great nations of the world, United States of America, Britain, Paris, Germany, and the rest of them have also made a commitment to contribute $1 billion every year to developing nations to be able to fight against climate change. And if these funds are made available, it will only get to research groups, research institutions, organizations that are already known to be working on climate change. So there's a lot of prospect for researchers, to work towards climate change. And like we have been saying, under entrepreneurship, somebody may ask, our old mothers in the village, most of them cook with what? With firewood, isn't it? Yeah. How do they know that this firewood they are using is having effects on the globe? We need to go and do some kind of sensitization to them. And not only sensitization, now a lot of people are coming up with clean stove. Clean stove. Now you can replace fine with clean stove. That's part of innovation, green innovation. Now you can start innovating and coming up with, stoves that will not emit as much carbon as the firewood they are using. And then this can be distributed to the women in the village. And then they can be told on the need to stop what? Using firewood and stop falling woods in the forest. Education plays a paramount role in raising awareness and promoting behavioral changes in climate change, mitigation, and adoption. It helps increase the rate of change, mitigation, and adoption, capacity of community by enabling individuals to make informed decisions. UNESCO and UNFCCC, that's the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, agreed that education provides the skills people need to thrive in the new sustainable economy, working in areas such as renewable energy, smart agriculture, forest rehabilitation, the design of resource-efficient cities, and sound management of healthy ecosystems. Christina Figueres, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, emphasized that the increasing awareness of climate change can only be through education. And he said, I quote, "It is not only about studying climate change, but also about understanding it. It is critical to include it in our curriculum, but it needs to be embedded in the DNA of today's very education concept. It is not just another course. It is about how everything else we study or do is affected by climate." Ladies and gentlemen, I will round off in a short while. I will not take so much of your time, but this is very, very important. Given the threat that climate change and global warming is portraying to the entire world, then it becomes necessary. We do not only have an idea of what climate change is all about, but that it be integrated into our curriculum. That it be integrated into our curriculum. And so I want to University takes a course on carbon literacy or climate change, it may be a 0-unit course, but it's made compulsory, at least to give us awareness. And that's how aware danger of and introduce this into our curriculum, just like we have Library 101, which is a 0-unit course. You don't necessarily have to credit it, but you have the knowledge. You take the course compulsorily, something like that. Now, if you look at to the next, the previous page. Now look at that book, for instance, Education, a Powerful Tool for Combating Climate Change, a guide for education unions and educators. Now, in the developed countries, they have already come up with curriculums or curricula which takes care of different level of students, primary school, secondary school, tertiary school, and then other sector. So climate change have been embedded into their curricula, and they take courses on climate change, you know, before graduation. Okay, my slide is much. I just skip so many. Go to integrating carbon literacy into Nigerian education system. Yeah, that's it. So like I just said, we have to work towards integrating, carbon literacy into the Nigeria curriculum. I know that we cannot do this alone. We have to seek the agreement of the accrediting bodies like NUC and the rest of that. A lot of work is already on that. So we need to develop curriculums. If you go online, you see a lot of curriculum on climate change and so on and so forth. So we can adopt or adapt some of these curriculums into the Nigerian education. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Go to tools and digital educational technologies. Down. Okay, fine. Now we are in the age of technology, and there are a lot of digital tools out there. We can also employ the use of some of these tools, you know, for carbon literacy and climate change, you know, curricula. Of course, with the advent of COVID-19, a lot of organizations and educational institutions are already advocating blended learning and e-learning. We can also bring in the climate change curriculum into this. We have a lot of learning management system. In fact, the toolkits that we developed, we have already attached it to Moodle, and we have some courses that students can take. Some of our students, during the 1-year research that we did, when we developed our toolkit, we invited some students in the LAUTECH community. Some of them will be receiving their certificate today. Let me also say this, there are certification courses on carbon literacy that are available online. Some of them are free, some of them you pay for it. For instance, the Manchester Metropolitan University, they have a carbon literacy toolkit where you can train and you can become a certified carbon literacy expert. So you can take some of these courses, they're available. Then we have gamification of interactive and instructional media integration. We have audio and video conferences. These are technologies that we can take advantage of and then bring in carbon literacy, climate change in a very interactive and friendly manner that people can learn, and then people can be sensitized and get aware of danger of carbon literacy and climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, the next slide. We have said so much. No, back to that image. No, yeah. Okay, we have said so much during this sensitization workshop. If there is anything you need to take home today, one, we must understand the entire world is being threatened by climate change and global warming. And one of the things responsible for it is the emission of carbon and other F gases into the atmosphere as a result of human activities. And we all have one role or the other to play to reduce carbon emission. And as an individual, as an organization, as an institution, we have a role to play. So let's walk the talk. Let it not just be a talk thing. Can we as a university agree to take responsibility and say we have a role to play? And how do we take this responsibility? I've just talked about curriculum development. We can take the lead, develop curriculum for climate change and integrate it into our system and make every student to take either a 1 unit or 0 unit course on climate change, and then by that, we are already, sensitizing everybody. And all those that go through that course, they also will preach it to other people and on like that. If every university in Nigeria today we have about 195 universities or more, and then polytechnics and private universities. If this is entrenched in our curricula and everybody take a course on carbon literacy, do you know that even the people in the industry, if you go to the oil and gas industry, you see a lot of gas flame. They're just burning, what do you call it in organic chemistry now? Methane and the rest of them. Yeah, just burning into the atmosphere. Now, if we go to agric, in agric, Mrs. Bale was talking about ruminant animals. Do you know that ruminant animals produce a lot of methane? Because they have their stomach, they don't chew immediately. When they eat, they store it, they regurgitate, and then a lot of methane is eventually released. So there are many ways by which F gases are put into the atmosphere. We can make a commitment to reduce it. And by that, we are playing our role and making the art to be sustainable for the future generation. My brothers, my sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that you don't just want to live on art, and when you finish living, the art will end. You want the incoming generation to meet a good art, isn't it? That's what we call sustainability. So if we have to sustain this good art, then we must play a role so that the incoming generation will see something, to use. The last slide. Now, if you look at this last slide, where I'm going to stop, this is what climate change is causing. Now, if you look at this side, it's so dry, isn't it? Drought, no water. Now, some other side are so green, in fact, overflooded with water. Now, in some countries, that's what is happening. Everywhere so dry. They cannot plant, nothing can grow, animals cannot. You see the animals dried up. You see their skeletons. Yeah. So if we don't do anything about it, more of that will happen. There'll be a lot of drought in many countries. While some other parts of the world are experiencing excess of water, flooding, and other things that is destroying the atmosphere. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your rapt attention and for the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for that presentation. Questions, please. Questions? Questions? If you have your questions, let's have it. presentation. Now we move on to the next item. Question? Yeah, let's have it. Quickly.
Okay. Thanks so much for the workshop. Yeah. My questions goes like, okay, me going home and educating my grandmother. Me going home and educating my grandmother on carbon. Me going home and educating my grandmother about carbon literacy. Well, okay, I'm telling her to stop using firewood and start using some easier techniques in making our food so that the carbon stuff won't affect the climate stuff. So my question is that what are the plans of government in reducing all these price of alternatives like gas, kerosene, and other stuff? That's my first question. And my second question is that, okay, with my look, the carbon literacy, some of the implementation, okay, we are trying to subdue the rate of cars in the city, and they want to, okay, start using bicycle. That can also cause lack of unemployment for some drivers, stuff like that, and even some people that are, some guys that are producing electricity through coal. If we start implementing maybe some solar techniques, that can also cause some unemployment.
Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to say that technology do not cause unemployment. When computing or computer was going to come, everybody was afraid that computer would take over the job of everybody. Has computer taken over the job of everybody? No. We are saying AI, robotics, and all that. It will take the job of so many people. Now, when there's a new technology, all you just need is to retrain, and then you find a job. Is that okay? Yeah. So effort towards reducing carbon emission is not going to take the job of people. There are many other things that it will also create. Is that okay? For instance, we talk about renewable energy. Renewable energy. Now, if we stop, hello, gentlemen. Now, the solar panels that we are using currently today, those of you using solar, how many have you seen made in Nigeria? None. Most of the solar panels are being imported. Now, that creates, an industry for Nigerians. Why not sit down and think of how to create solar panel? That's the innovation we are talking about. Yeah, because even most of the solar panels we are using today, they are not made with Nigerian temperature in mind. They are created in some other country. And most of the time, when you put a solar panel in Nigeria, after some time, you just see it bending because of the heat of the sun. Now let's create our own solar panel with our own atmospheric condition, and that will create a lot of industry for a lot of people. Is that okay? Now, for the grandmother in the village, she's cooking with firewood, and you want to explain carbon literacy to her. There should be a way to be able to appeal to her mind. Is that okay? But otherwise, they say if a little child is playing with a sharp object and you want to take it from him, because that sharp object will end up injuring him, you look for what? A toy or something alternative that is also better. And then you attract the little child, give me that sharp object and take this thing. Isn't it? Yeah. You don't just tell the old woman to stop using firewood. You look for a better alternative that is clean. Mama, this stove will not make your pot to be black. You give her the advantage of the alternative you are giving her. Then you give her the other alternative and you withdraw that one that is dangerous from her. So that's one way you can appeal to those women in the village. Thank you very much. You want to say something again? Now, the issue of bicycle, fine. Not everybody can ride bicycle, actually. There'll be so many bicycles. the government have the role to play. If you go to Europe, for instance, you don't need a car because there is a very, 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 I emphasize that again, very, 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 very effective rail system in Europe, particularly in Germany. If you miss a train in Germany, just look at this board. It tells you in 5 minutes or 7 minutes, another train will be coming. So you don't get stranded. There is effective transportation system. So instead of everybody driving their car, there's a train that's going to your direction anywhere you are going in Germany. You find a train going to your direction. So 300, 500 people can go by train rather than carrying 500 cars on the road. So it's effective. And I think our government is already making some effort towards that. In Lagos, they're already talking about the blue line, isn't it? Yeah, the blue line. They're coming up with a railway that will be moving within town and then intercity and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now we move to the presentation of certificates to participants of carbon literacy toolkit training. Okay, and it's to be done by Professor Adidos. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our professor. He has not been properly introduced. He's not just Professor Adidosu. He's the director, Laucreed. Laucreed is Lautech Center for Research and Innovation, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so he's the director. I like to say that when we are pursuing this research grant, it was quite useful. In fact, you cannot do that without his office. Yeah, there are some letters, there are some things we need to write and provide. It was that office that provided all those supports. It's a pleasure to have him here this afternoon. Now, during the course of our research, we conducted some training. Some people were in attendance, so they'll be getting their certificates this afternoon. Quickly, we just do that.
Thank you very much, our Dean, for that introduction. We just allow me to say one or two things just for 2 minutes, just because of the importance of this sensitization workshop. Actually, they have said it all. Professor Bali have said it all. Professor Justice, the convener, also have said it all. So what, as you have seen, that what they are trying to do is to provide solution to climate change problem through green innovation. So I want to pose this challenge to you now. If you have any of you that have any idea that can mitigate this climate change, any idea, on green innovation, please don't hesitate to contact Professor Justice and any member of the team in order for them to assist you, to nurture the idea so that you can get money from it. And that's the essence of this workshop. So on that note, I would like, first of all, to congratulate the organizers, as I've said, and also to especially congratulate the people that will be coming to collect these certificates, because they've had that opportunity to partake in this carbon literacy for youth employability and job creation. So they are now experts too, and you can also approach any one of them too. I would first of all like to call, the first person I will call now is one of our Oga in the university. Is one of our teachers and also a core member of the faculty of informatics. So I would like to call on Dr. Grima Eso for his certificate. The next person is Emiyo Bafari. Precious. Precious. Is Precious around? Okay. Okay. The next person is Ayedun Rashid Babatunde. Is he around? The next person is Abdulkoyum Adegoke. Is he here? Abdulkoyum Adegoke. The next person is Oyelade Oluwaseun. Oyelade Oluwaseun. Then I have Dare Raphael Boluwatife. Dare Raphael Boluwatife. Then I have Kukoyi Oladipupo Elijah. Kukoyi Oladipupo Elijah. So the next person is also a big fish. Is one of the proud professor and alumnus of this great university. I'm presently the director of Lautech ICT. I will call on Professor Eso Olabisi for his certificate. Okay. Then the next person is Oladile Paul. Oladile Paul. Then I also have Adewale Paul. Adewale Paul. Then I have Adebayo Alimat. Adebayo Alimat. Then the next person is Olawumi Sulaiman. Olawumi Sulaiman. Then I have Fajobi Ezekiel. Fajobi Ezekiel. Then I have Ogungbesan Adewale. Ogungbesan Adewale. The next person is Balogun Oluwa Pemi. Balogun Oluwa Pemi. Then I have Jeremiah Yetomiwa. Jeremiah Yetomiwa. The next person, Abidemi Oluwatobi. Abidemi Oluwatobi. I have Dami Ayokomi. Dami Ayokomi. I have Atanda Oladayo. Atanda Oladayo. The next person is Adigun Ajibola. Adigun Ajibola. Then I have Akimbowale Timileyin. Akimbowale Timileyin. The next person is Sanusi Hakim. Sanusi Hakim. The next person is Jeremiah Oluborode. Jeremiah Oluborode. Then the last from my side is Oyelahon Oluwajoba. Oyelahon Oluwajoba. So the people that are not here can reach out to Professor Justice for their certificate. So once again, on a further note, I will employ everybody seated here and tell people that are not here that any research that I want to do now, make sure you tense it towards these green innovations. Because you know that any research you engage in this area is going to be money, money, and money for you. So thank you very much again for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Now we've come to the end of this program, but before then, for the vote of thanks, I want to invite Dr. Mrs. Amuson for the vote of thanks. Dr. Mrs. Amuson.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm actually here to thank you. Okay, so on behalf of the organizer of this workshop, that is the Mobile and E-Computing Research Group, domiciled in the Faculty of Computing and Informatics, LAUTECH, you'll all agree with me that this workshop has been impactful. Yes or no? Okay, so we want to really appreciate you. Thank you for coming. We thank all the dignitaries, principal officers that were here before, now in absentia. We thank all the deans and HODs, professors here present, and staff members, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and great Ladokites. Thank you all for coming. I believe that you have taken one or two things from this workshop. Okay, please do look out for subsequent events that will be organized by this group. Thank you all for coming once again.
Thank you very much. Please wait. We are going to have photographs outside there, but before then, let us try to have the national anthem. National anthem.
National anthem.
Thank you very much.